Okay, if you're trying to draw with a mouse and you're moving your stuff around, you're noticing all the your lines are jagged. So drawing with a mouse is not always the best way to do it, but there's a couple ways that you can do this. The first way is like if you need a perfect circle or a perfect square, you can always right click on it, a marquee tool, and select your shape that you want. You can even um, you can even add and subtract to it. So if I want to add to it, I would go something like this. So you get your shape that you need, and then you can stroke that shape. Now let me move this back over here. Now, being this is a simple stroke, I can stroke that and have um, that particular shape, exactly what I need. Um, the next thing that you can do is you can use the pen tools to stroke your shape, and you just right click on it and say stroke path, and then you tell it what you're going to do. Now if you're just doing a solid path like this, that's fine. You can also do what they you can also stroke the path, but you can also check on simulate pressure, and that'll actually change your pressure. Now it didn't do it here because if you notice in my pressure tools, in my shape dynamics, if I go here actually to pen pressure, um, I've got this little arrow because I'm not using my tablet right now. But now if I go back and stroke to stroke path with pen pressure, I'm going to get more of a varied line in there, and that works great too. Now the another thing you can do is you can actually go in and change this to fade, and right now I've got 3,000 steps just because of the size of my canvas, but with the fade will start large and work small, so you can actually stroke your path that way, and it will stroke from large to small on that direction too. So that's another way to um, get yourself some very clean and crisp lines in there without using the mouse as a pathing tool. Another thing is that, and I'm just going to delete my work path here, that works great for line work. Another thing is that if you're trying to, I'm just going to go to layers here, say I'm trying to build up something, you want to do like your hardness as a solid, and then I'm just going to just doesn't matter what shape I use, I can just go in there. Also, when you're doing this, make sure that your spacing, I'm going to take off shape dynamics here, make sure your spacing is tight, because then that'll actually clean up a little bit more around the edges. It'll still be very um, bumpy, if you will. But if you hold in shift, you can actually straighten up some of the lines and clean up around, if you want more of a straighter edge, things like that. And it's just basically going around and cleaning up that stuff. Um, so it's a matter of, again, going in, making sure that the spacing is properly set, and cleaning up that. And that's why the marquee is really nice if you want like an oval, or an oval shape, something rounded here. You can actually go back to the brush and clean up and get that nice clean edge. Um, so that's one way to go in there and get the shapes that you need. Another thing is you can use, right now I've got this, and if you're starting with line work, so I've got line work like this, you generally don't want to use the fill tool, because the fill tool, if I can find it. There we go. The paint bucket tool. The paint bucket tool will leave this ring around there, and sometimes you have to just double click to get rid of that ring, but it always leaves this ring and look like you've tried to fill in something with the paint bucket tool. So that's one of the things that you can do. But as I was mentioning before, I'm just going to go in and select this shape, and we're just going to cut and paste. So I've got this shape now, and it's on this new layer. And then what you can do is use this as a clipping mask. It's Alt and Control. I think it's Alt and or Apple and Command. But this clipping mask, now what I can do is I can choose a different color with my paintbrush, go large, and I'll use a small hardness. And then with that, it doesn't matter. I suppose it would help if I actually had color in there. So with that, I can actually go in there and start painting around. Now, when I tell people this, you know, the solid color like this you can put in there, and that's fine. But if you want really smooth gradients, the best thing to do is go really large and actually just paint around the object. And because we're using a clipping mask, that will actually give you a better idea. The other thing is using a smaller opacity, and we can actually just, I'm just going really small on the opacity here. So you can just kind of click on the opacity and slowly just kind of build up your shapes. And then we're just going to go really white here. So because I'm using such a low opacity, so you can grab, your shapes on there. And because I'm doing this as a clipping mask, I'm confining the area back and forth. So that's another way to paint really well with a mouse, and that's probably the best ways to do it. Is basically use soft brushes with clipping masks, and use your pens and your marquees with the stroke command. Fill also works well for the pen tools. So if you want a shape on there, get your shape going on and close your shape, and then you can actually just right click on there, and I suppose it would help to get a decent color going on, and just right click, and we can fill the path too, and you can fill it with foreground color pattern, 50% gray, 50% white. Now this isn't showing up because of the simple fact that it's on a clipping layer. Let's fill this in a different layer here, and then you can fill this in a different layer, and then you can dump you can keep your paths, or you can dump them after you've got your shapes done. So I mean, that's another quick, nice way to get solid lines and solid shapes. But I do really recommend that you go buy some sort of a pressure sensitive tablet to manipulate this stuff. All right.